Hi Golf, it's Nick here for Nick Taylor Golf. It's Friday, so welcome to another lesson on golf tips. This week on Golf Tips, this is part 2 of a 2-part series, taking a look at the stack and tilt golf swing in slow motion with a driver. In part 1, we took a look at the stack and tilt golf swing with a driver from the face on camera. In today's video, we're going to take a look at the stack and tilt golf swing from the side view camera. In this video, we're going to go through some club data, some ball data in the stack and tilt golf swing, that kind of what you'd expect from my golf swing. And then we're going to take a look at the 9 positions of the stack and tilt golf swing in slow motion, just to give you guys a little bit of idea of how to video your golf swing and what checkpoints to look for to improve your golf. Before we take a look at my swing and break it down into the 9 positions in slow motion, let's just take a look at sort of my standard shot, stack and tilt golf swing. Take a look at some club data and some ball data. So you can see the shot on the screen there, pretty straight, just drawing back a little bit towards the line. So typical shot for the stack and tilt golf swing is a sort of a little push draw. So it's gone out there to around 298, certainly would take that one. A little bit high spinny. This isn't my driver today, unfortunately. This isn't the spec I use. Unfortunately, it's not in the center, but you can see there club data, 118 miles an hour, 163 ball speed. Just taking a look at that in a bit more detail there. So you can see the club path there, 3 degrees into out. I hit 0.3 upwards, so very level angle attack. Launched around 13.5, spin rate was a little high. Like I said, this isn't my normal driver that I use. I didn't have that with me today, but you can see there, basically the club data is slightly into out, very level angle attack, and nice little push draw. So certainly take that one around 298 in total distance. So the first stage we're going to look at here is setup, which is position 1. So from this setup position here, you can see I'm bending forward with my upper body. Not quite as much as I do with an iron, that's just because of the length of the golf club is different. You'll notice also how my head position is slightly tilted down, so my eyes are looking down at the golf ball. I'm not pointing my chin up. I see a lot of golfers that sort of lift their chin up when they set up. That makes it very difficult to sort of see the ball out the center of their vision. It makes it a lot harder to keep your eyes centered and focused on the golf ball. So my head's slightly tilted down. The shaft position from this angle is angled just above my belt here. So you can see here where the shaft's pointing from this stage. And then from the side view camera here, you can also see how my elbows are kind of in line here. So I'm setting up my body pretty square to my feet line. I haven't got my shoulders open like this. It's one of the biggest mistakes I see with golfers with a driver. When they have the ball slightly further forward, they kind of have their shoulders too far open, whereas this elbow slightly tucked in, slight bend in the right elbow. So that will help line up my elbows. My eyes are looking down at the golf ball, and then the shaft here is just pointing just above the belt, and you can see I have a slight knee bend as well. So that's setup position 1. It's very important when you're videoing your golf swing that you get the camera in the perfect position. So you need to get this camera here in line with your hands and kind of about chest height. You don't want it too high or too low, because that can alter the perspective of where the golf club is in the golf swing. So the height of the camera and the position of it is really important. So at position 2, this is when the shaft here is parallel to the ground. And what you'll notice here, I've got a circle on my head, I've got a line on my knee, back of my hips here, a line through the shaft, and another line here just at the top of my elbow. This is kind of my swing plane, if you like. So in the first stage of the swing is position 2, when the shaft's at parallel. What we're looking at here is my knees are starting to change flex, my left shoulder's starting to sort of tilt downwards, and I'm starting to turn my hips and my shoulders, and my hands and the club will pretty much trace the shaft plane line here that we have at address. By the time I get to this position, at position 2, you'll see the hands and the club have traced the shaft plane. My knee flexes begin to change, and my turns of my body are a lot higher than you would expect. By the time I get to here, my shoulders would have turned roughly 50 degrees. My hips would have turned almost 20 degrees by this stage. So I'm really turning, moving my shoulder down, changing my knee flex to get from setup to position 2. So from position 2, I'm going to move into position 3, which is when the left arm is parallel. Now my right arm will start to bend at this stage. This starts to give some ascent to the shaft plane here as I go back, and then the shaft here will be pointing through the lower part of the bicep. I would continue to turn, my left shoulder would continue to move downwards, my back leg would be getting pretty straight by this point with the driver. The more I turn, the more this leg straightens. So my leg will straighten more with the driver than it would do with, say, a wedge. So by the time I get to position 3 here, you'll see my head's pretty centered. The shaft's going through the lower part of the bicep. My knee flex is changed quite a lot. You'll see some daylight in this between my legs here. And my head's pretty much in that circle by the time I get to position 3, which is when the left arm is parallel to the ground. So from position 3 to position 4, what I'm going to be doing here is continue to turn. So my shoulders would be turning to around 100 degrees at this stage. My hips would be sort of closer to 50 degrees of rotation at this stage with the driver. My left arm would be across the line of my shoulders. My right arm will be flexed, say 90 degrees at this stage. And you'll see there's some bend in my right wrist here, and the left one's pretty flat. So by the time I get to position 4, my head's in the circle. The club's pretty much pointing down towards the target. If you watch my legs closely here, by the time I get to the top, this right knee will actually start to regain some bend. And that's just me kind of starting my downswing with my lower body just a fraction before I start with my shoulders as I come down. So position 4, top of the backswing, you'll see there's some daylight between my knees. The left arm's across the line of my shoulders. There's a bend in my right wrist. The left wrist is pretty flat. So that would be the position 4 where I'm turned the most in the backswing. From position 4, we're going to move into position 5. And position 5 is when the left arm is parallel in the downswing. If you remember in the backswing, position 3, we had the shaft going through the lower part of the bicep. By the time we get to position 5, now we have the shaft here going through the middle part of my right bicep. So what you'll notice is my hands would be inwards more in the backswing than they are in the downswing, and that's just down to the rotation of my shoulders. In the backswing, I'll be turning more at this stage than I do as I start down. That's why the checkpoint here is slightly different between position 3 and position 5. So at position 5 here, my knees would be almost back to where they were at address in terms of the knee bend. My hips will be pretty close to where they were at address, which is pretty square, like 0 degrees. My shoulders will still be turned at this stage. My shoulders are still closed to the target line, but not as much as they were in the backswing. That's the key thing here. So at position 5 here, the left arm's across inside my stance line. Not as much as it was at 3, but still inside. And the shaft plane there is going through the middle of my right bicep at position 5. So from position 5, we're going to move into position 6. And this is quite an important part of the golf swing. Now this is one of the key areas where you need to check where the club head is in relationship to your hands. So at position 6, you'd expect that club head to be in line with the hands or just slightly inside. I see the highest handicappers have the club outside of their hands at position 6, and that just leads into swinging across the golf ball, weak, pull shot, slices. So at position 6, we're looking for the club and the hands to be in line. You'll see we go from 5 to 6, you'll see how my club traces the 2 lines here in the middle of this cone. This cone is kind of my swing plane, so I'm kind of driving that club and the hands in between these 2 lines from 5 to 6. That's the kind of the checkpoint that we're looking for in the downswing, so we're keeping that club on plane. These 2 lines are really important when you're videoing your golf swing. Shaft plane, top of the elbow, and then from 5 to 6 we're going in between those lines. So you see by the time I get to position 6, again my hands are in the middle of the cone, so is the club. In the backswing we're on the inside line, on the downswing we're slightly out, again down to the way we're turning our shoulders. So by the time we get down to position 6, my hips will be starting to open to the target line. My shoulders would be almost square by this stage, not quite square, but pretty close to square. So position 6, shaft parallel, club in line with the hands or just inside, shoulders pretty square to the target, hips opening up, knee bend is just on these lines, pretty much kind of where they were at setup, but this would be the position 6, which is really important in the downswing. Another thing to note here would be the club face here should be slightly toe down. It shouldn't be toe up or open or too excessively closed at this stage. If you look at the club face here, it should be just slightly toe down, very slightly at this stage, kind of matching my spine angle at this stage. So from position 6 to position 7, you're going to see how my foot moves inwards, my right foot, as I'm pushing my hips forward as I go through. I'm keeping the club in between these two lines and my hands in between these two lines. So you see at address, my handle would be slightly lower than where it is at impact as I start to raise my body up and push forward with my hips. My head's pretty close to the circle. It's not perfect, but it's pretty close to the circle at this stage. You'll see also my knee, my right knee here, it's not flexing too much. I see a lot of golfers, they come down, they start flexing this knee too much. You'll see how I'm kind of banking my right foot inwards here. So at position 7, that impact, my knees are inside the line. Hips pretty close to this back line here, not perfect. My head's pretty close to the circle. So from 7 to 8, what you're going to see here is I'm going to continue to turn. So my hips are really starting to turn at this stage. My shoulders are starting to turn. And my hands and my club are going to start to trace the elbow plane as I go through. So you see that line that was set at address? See how they're tracing that line as I go through? They're not pushing out here. I see this is one of the biggest mistakes I see of golfers, that they try and draw the golf ball and they actually swing off the plane this way. We're trying to stay on this grid. So we have the line here for the club path and the hand path. Hands and club move inwards on the way back and then back inwards as we go through. So by the time we get to position 8 here, my head would be pretty much close to that circle. My hip would be almost touching that line. My knees would be inside of the yellow line here. My club and my hands are tracing the yellow line as we go through. This is keeping my tilt to the ground. You see my right foot here. So you can see the sole of my shoe here as I'm pushing my hips forward and turning. So at this stage here, my shoulders will be tilted and turned, and my hands should have moved to the left by this stage, really important. Like I said, I'm not swinging down the target line. My hands will be coming out of the picture by this stage as we get through to position 8, which is when the right arm is parallel in the follow through. So from position 8 to 9, you'll start to see the club shaft here just exit just below my left shoulder. That's keeping it on plane. And then you'll see how my hands will exit on my left shoulder as well, just below it. So my hands in the backswing and the finish are kind of in the same spot. And if you look at it from the camera here, that's me swinging around in a circle. So I'm not lifting my arms off my chest here, I'm keeping them quite connected. So my left arm is across my shoulders in the backswing, and the right arm is across my shoulders in the follow through. You'll see how I'm turned by this stage, but my swing finish is about here. I've rehinged the club. My left elbow is flexed, say 90 degrees. We saw in the backswing the right elbow is flexed 90 degrees. Now the left arm is. And you'll see how I'm turning my body. I'm looking towards the target, but the club's not hitting me on the back of the shoulder. It's a more controlled finish as I get through to the position 9 on the finish. So let's hit one more. So pretty similar shot to last time. But like I said before, just spinning up a little bit. Just slight push out to the right. But it's okay, around 282, so probably take that. So not bad. That kind of gives you a little bit of a outline there of the stack and tilt golf swing from the side view camera with the driver. Thanks for watching, golfers. If you've got any questions on that, post them in the box below. If you want to find out a little bit more about the stack and tilt golf swing, check out this playlist, and I'll see you again next week for another video.
The most